In today's session, we will discuss what is an orchestration, what is a mule, and what is an architecture of Anypoint platform. Let me start with an orchestration. The concept orchestration is very common in a integration platform, right? So, can I ask you, what is an orchestration? We have three instruments here. Now, tell me if these three instruments, that means if these three instruments played their own music, if they play the music on their own, are we going to get a structured music or random music? Some random music,
Yeah.
correct? Now, in order to get some structured music, what we are going to do? What is our idea? Okay, we need to follow some pattern, or else we need to listen to the instructions and we need to play according to the instructions. So in orchestra, normally you can see one person who is waving his hands, giving some instructions to the troupe who are playing the instruments. According to the instructions, if they play the music, then we are going to get some structured music. Correct? Assume that this is an instructor. Apply the same concept here. I'm getting some request. That request will kept in some queue. I will configure one component. Don't try to understand that component level. Try to understand the overview of the concept. It will read this message, and this component knows how to invoke a service one, and service one will execute according to the request, and it will return some response in format called X. Actually, we require the output in a Z format by writing this application, right? So I will write the configure. I will configure one component which will invoke service one, and the service one will give some response in format called X. That X format I will keep it in some internal queue again. I will configure one more component which will take this request, and what type of request? X response as a request, and it will invoke service 2, and service will 2 will execute something according to the response, and it will give some response called Y. Now at this component level we can store original response which is coming, that means X, as well as we can store the response which is coming from a service 2 as well. So I can store in a variable. Okay, at the component level we can store in a variable also. Now that response will we keep it in some internal queue again. I'll configure one more component, and this component knows how to read this message, and it will invoke service 3 and it's going to give response called Z. So finally what I required, I got that response. Now what that response will be given back to the client. Now what I'm doing here, I am processing, I mean, I'm coordinating with multiple services to get the desired work. That means to get the desired output. Process of coordinating with multiple services and getting the desired work done is nothing but an orchestration. And where this orchestration is logic is written, we have written that orchestration logic in some application. Assume that this is a Mule flow. In Mule, we will call these as a flows. In every flow, we contains what type of logic? Orchestration logic. Okay. So every component is orchestrated to get the desired work done. So finally, what is an orchestration? Process of coordinating with multiple services to get the desired work done by writing some orchestrated logic in a flows. Where we write these flows? In the Anypoint Studio, we will create one project. In that project, we will be having one configuration XML. That is the main file. In that XML, we are going to write these flows. Each flow contains what? Orchestration logic. Now, where we write these XMLs, we will create a Mule application and we'll write these XMLs. In that XML, we'll write a flows. Each flow contains orchestration logic. Where we create these Mule applications normally to define your application, to write the implementation where we will create Mule applications. Anypoint Studio is an IDE here to create Mule applications, correct? So this is the hierarchy will be followed in a project level, right? Now, can I, if anyone asks you what is a Mule, what you will tell? Okay, before that, how many XMLs we can write in a Mule application? Multiple.
Yeah.
We can write a number of XMLs. We can create a number of XMLs. In an XML, how many flows we can create, right? So now if anyone asks you what is a Mule, what is the structure of a Mule, what you will tell? Collection of flows and XMLs as well. Mule is a set of XMLs which contains such flow definitions. We'll call these as a flow definitions. Each flow contain what? Orchestration logic. Mule is a set of XMLs which contain such flow definitions. Each flow contains orchestration logic. Now, assume that we have created a flows And where we are going to run this flows. So I'll call this as Mule runtime. In Mule, we'll call this as a Mule runtime. What is the version we are going to use? What is the latest version? Mule runtime version is 4.7 is nothing but an Anypoint Studios version. Mule runtime version is 4. Mule 4 means it's a runtime version. Actually, it will call 4.x. These versions will be keep on repeating. The major version changes from 3 to 4. You need to remember one point. You need to note a point. Mule is not for deploying web applications. It is to deploy Mule applications only. When we develop any web application, we will give integration logic to some third-party vendor like Mule. Now, web application should communicate with my Mule application. How it will communicate? If two applications want to speak with each other, if application A want to speak with application B, then what is the idea? Application A, application B. If the application A want to communicate with application B, this application B should expose as an API, correct? By using some web service. Similarly, if my web application want to communicate with my Mule application, I want to, first thing we need to expose Mule, right? So design Mule API and expose it. To describe about an API in SOAP, we have some, what is the file to describe about a SOAP API?
Wisdom.
Wisdom, right? But you are going to use here REST. To describe
Ramu.
about REST, any standard
Ram.
format,
Ramu.
RAML, as well as we can use Swagger also. But here we are going to use a RAML. RAML is a separate body, not part of a Mule, right? So my Mule is using a RAML. So by using a RAML, we are going to design the API. Where we are going to design center. By using RAML, we are going to design our API. Okay, I'm just giving the architecture of Anypoint platform. Okay, I'm giving the one-liner of each and every tool here. We are going to discuss about each and every tool in detail when the API comes. Now, how to design the RAML? Mule has given a tool called API Designer by which we can design APIs. Now, how to publish your APIs? We need to publish your API so that they can use at an organization level. Somewhere we will publish that APIs, the developed APIs. In that, we will call this as an exchange. That is called Anypoint Exchange. Mule has given a tool called Anypoint Exchange so that whatever the APIs you created, that will be published onto the exchange. And you need to remember, who are having the same Anypoint platform account, they can only log into that account and they can use this APIs, right? But while designing stage, if you want to get a feedback, if you want to simulate some feedback from the client is an outsider. So how he can access your API? The requirement is client want to access this API. That means you want to get a feedback from the client. Where client can search all my APIs, MuleSoft provides a tool called API portal, right? Where we can share all the designed APIs, right? It will be kind of a catalog. This link, API portal link, will be given to the client. Now, I don't want my Mule application to expose directly to client, and I want to check whether my client is valid client or not. That means I want to write some security logic, but not in a original Mule application. Then what is the idea? API manager. Now, I will ask, by giving the original implementation URL to the API manager, I will ask the API manager to create a proxy. What do you mean by proxy? Duplicate of my original API. So it is also downloadable. We can download that proxy and we can deploy on the runtime. So that this proxy, in order to listen for the request, it should be deployed, right, on some server. So we'll deploy a Mule runtime again. So that URL, the proxy URL will be given to the client. If at all clients want to send a request, first he will send a request to the proxy, and in the API manager level, we will write some security policies which will be read or passed by something called the thread name called security interceptor. Now this thread will, at regular intervals, it will keep on roaming in the backend at regular intervals, and whenever we apply some security policy, it will be read and it will be applied to the proxy. Whenever client sends a request, the request will be validated against these policies, and if it is valid, then only it will hit the original implementation. Otherwise, the proxy itself will give giving the exceptions to the client. Simply it is acting as a gateway in between. Assume that we have created and we shared and everything is done. Now we need to write some implementation to my API. So where we can define our Mule applications, What is the tool name to write the implementations? Anypoint Studio, where we are going to create our projects and where we are going to write our flows. So one thing very important, and why it is so popular, the design, whatever the design you are writing by using a RAML, and assume that we have some resources and methods combination. If you have 100 resources and 100 methods, for every resource method combination, it will create automatic flows based on the design in the Anypoint Studio with a single click, which will save a lot of time for the developer. That means you can import this RAML file onto the studio with a single click, right? From the design center to Anypoint Studio. According to the design, it will create flows. So if you have 100 resources, 100 flows will get generated. So you don't need to do it manually. So those flows are are automatically generated. Those flows are called as stubs or else placeholders. If you want to connect to any database and if you want to write implementation logic, that you can simply write only the implementation logic. No need to create a flow and no need to write some basic logic in that flow. The basic logic will be written based on the design. Only you need to write a specific implementation for a particular application. That is one of the more important feature in a Mule. All these tools are part of Anypoint platform. Now we can deploy in multiple ways. I will show 3 ways how to deploy your application. One is, I'm talking about deployment strategies. One is through, second one is hybrid model, and third one is cloud. That in cloud means MuleSoft has one platform, is nothing but an iPaaS. What do you mean by iPaaS? Integration platform as a service, which is ready-madely all this servers, everything, hosting, everything will be ready-madely available. Only you need to deploy, upload your applications onto the cloud. Okay, platform is ready. So the platform name for MuleSoft is what? Cloud Hub. Okay, we will see how to deploy your application manually on premises, and by using an UI which is on the cloud, and you are going to deploy onto the on-premises. This is called hybrid. It's a combination of on-premises and a cloud. Okay, only the UI will be having for the manual servers, the standalone servers. And cloud, what do you mean by cloud? Everything is on cloud. That means from starting from the design, you can define also, instead of studio, you have a beta version on the cloud, then you can define there also, but it is not recommendable. Then how you can deploy onto the cloud? Write the application in studio, export that application. Since my Mule applications are Java applications, so you will be getting a jar file. That jar file we can deploy anywhere, on premises or hybrid model, or by using a cloud. So we need to take we need to do some few changes where you are deploying from on premises to cloud, that we will discuss in a cloud hub deployment session. So these all are the part of Anypoint platform. This is the simple architecture of Anypoint platform. If you understand for one resource, it will be same for remaining resources as well, right? So I will be explaining about one resource. For remaining resources, how application should look like, I will be copy pasting from my existing YAML. So while you are practicing, don't do that. Okay, for the time saving, I'm just copy pasting. But while practicing, don't do copy paste. At least for one time, write the syntax. YAML is purely about a syntax. You don't need to remember anything. Everything will be given as a case. If you want to show me the YAML file, this is an Anypoint platform. Once you log into this Anypoint platform, once you register, I will show you how to register everything from the session. Right now, I have this account. Okay, this is I'm the owner, and this is the username, and you can access the profile as well. This is the organization way I have given as an organization, right? So once ever you created, you will be getting one administrator account, right? Who he will manage an entire part of Anypoint platform. Now we can see some menu bar here, design center, where we are going to design, where we are going to publish the onto the exchange, and we have some access management where we can create a roles, users, and everything that we'll discuss in a cloud hub deployment, and API manager where I talk about what is a use of API manager to write some, yes, to create some proxies and write some security policies to map the original URL with the proxy URL, and runtime manager, as we discussed right now, a hybrid model. We can register your runtimes. That means on-premises runtimes with this runtime manager. So if I click on a runtime manager, you can see it is routing to Cloud Hub. That means everything is on cloud. Now this runtime manager, we can register multiple servers, on-premises servers, different versions of servers, and you can deploy your applications through runtime manager to on-premises servers. This is a simple architecture of Anypoint platform. Next, we'll start with a basic application, how to create your Mule application, okay, by using an Anypoint Studio. So as I said, first we'll talk about all the implementation, how to use a studio, how to write the implementations by using a different kinds of concepts, right? So let me start with the first basic hello world program, so that you need to install your Anypoint Studio on your machines. Once you download this file, you will be having a postman which will be acting as an REST client. To make some REST calls, and we require Anypoint Studio. Before opening this Anypoint Studio, we need to have who are installing for the first time. I'm just telling for them to install this Anypoint Studio. That means actually it is not installing on your OS. Okay, it's an application based. You can switch the workspace and you can use it. So in order to open this Anypoint Studio, we need to set up some environment variables. First thing is we need to have JDK 1.8 on your machine. If you are using Anypoint Studio means you might have 1.8, JDK 1.8. You require JDK 1.8 on your machine. If you're not having, I have already given the installer. You can use this installer to install JDK 1.8. Okay, please check whether it is present in your machine or not. Sometimes it might be present without your knowledge. So just check in a command prompt by using this version, java space hyphen version. Yeah, I have version JDK 1.8. Now, once you have that, go to the where it got installed. Go to the program files. There is a Java folder, and go to the JDK. Don't not for the JRE. We required to development. Okay, Java development kit. We require development kit. So go to the JDK. In that JDK, we have a bin folder. Along with this JDK, we will be getting a JRE. That's why no need to worry about a JRE. So JRE for Java runtime environment to run your application, right? So bin folder, go to the bin folder and take this path. I want this path to point to path variable in your environment variable. So how to move to environment variable? Right click on this PC, properties, advanced system settings, environment variables. We have two levels, user level and a system level. At system level, please check whether already path variable is created in your machine or not. If it is not created, just click on a new and variable name give as a path and give the variable value as whatever you copied. It should point to bin folder, right? If it is already existing, click on edit and just check whether the path is configured or not in this one. Click on OK. And a user level, when you are going to use the standalone, we required Java underscore home to be present in that. So just check whether Java underscore home is present in that or not. If it is not, as usual, you need to create a new, and it should point to JDK instead of JDK bin. This time it should point to JDK only. So what you can do, paste it and remove the slash and bin. That's it. It should point to JDK. Okay, these are the two changes you need to do, and these are the two settings you need to enable in your environment variables. Then start opening this Anypoint Studio. Yeah, I extracted this 7.5.1 zip file. Once you extracted this, you will be getting a folder like this. That means Anypoint Studio structure. So just double click on this application. We got an icon. Just double click on this application. Let me close the already existing one. First time it will take some time in order to open this Anypoint Studio. So you can see it is asking for some launcher. It is asking for the workspace. What is the workspace? Where we are going to create our applications. So I'm going to create in my F drive. Justin. So to identify the workspace, so click on launch. Once you click on launch, see you can see the similarities between Eclipse IDE and Anypoint Studio IDE, because Anypoint Studio is totally built on top of an Eclipse IDE by using an Eclipse plugins. Now I clicked on Anypoint Studio launcher, right? Now go to the F drive and go to the workspace basically and click on this Justin folder. You can see some dot metadata. What do you mean by metadata? data about the data. That means here data about the MuleSoft, Anypoint Studio. You can see if I did click on metadata, you can see some plugins. If you open the plugins, you can see Eclipse plugins. Based on this Eclipse plugins, your Anypoint Studio is created. Now you welcome screen. In order to open this Anypoint Studio, for that, okay, you can ignore that as no. This is the overview outline of your Anypoint Studio. You can see the similarities between Eclipse and this one. Same kind of a structure you will have there as well. On the right side bottom, you can see it is loading some modules of a Mule runtime 4.3, because whenever they are releasing Anypoint Studio as a newer version, they will look after any new. What is the new version of a runtime? That runtime will be given as a plugin to this Anypoint Studio, right? So whenever you develop any application with a single click without starting a runtime, automatically it will start at the runtime, right? And it will be deployed. Your application will be deployed. Okay, that and all I will show you. If you want any new runtime to be added as a plugin, that you can create while creating your project. You can specify or you can add as a plugin to your Anypoint Studio. That I will show. So this is the outline of your Anypoint Studio. On the left side, we have a package explorer. That means where we are going to create your projects and creating a projects and creating the packages. That means the folders. That means basically grouping the projects together, right? And in middle, we can see some gray color. That is nothing but a canvas. We'll call this as a canvas where we are going to write or drag and drop your connectors. From where? From the Mule palette. Mule palette contains some modules, some connectors where we are going to use in our canvas, right? And we have some outline here. Whenever you create any project, and if you want to test any logic for your Mule application, we'll use munit. Munit also will be acting as a it will be acting as a plugin. It's a framework actually. So we have a separate session on munit. So or munit related errors, coverage, and munit, what are the tests we are going to configure, deploy, it will be shown under this 3 tabs. Right now we not required. Let me close all this. This is the outline of your project. It's also not required. Let me close all this, right? And we have a Mule properties. Whenever you select any property, any connector or a component, it will be shown under the Mule properties. And if you have any problems with your project, you can see under the problems. Now let me create. Still it is getting loaded. And as I said, what is the minimum requirement, system requirement to work with Anypoint Studio? It's a minimum of 8 GB RAM, but actually they suggested 16 GB RAM, but everyone will not have a 16 GB. 8 GB also work, and with a Windows 10. Now we can see how to create a project. These are the shortcuts to create a Mule project or import a project or create a Java project, anything. Okay, these are the shortcuts they have given, but these shortcuts are not available in the older versions of Studio. That means 7.4.2, like that. It is introduced in a 7.5.0 onwards, right? Right now, what is the version of Anypoint Studio? How we can check? Go to the help and click on Anypoint Studio. 7.5.1 is our studio. Okay, when they are releasing this version, what is the new version of runtime? 4.3. That's why they have given as a plugin. So how to create a project? By directly using this shortcut, you can use it, or else go to the file, new Mule project. Once I click on a Mule project, now you can see I'm going to create a project with a name 01 basics, and I want to deploy this application, and you want to select the runtime. By default, you will be getting a 4.3.0 because it's acting as a plugin. So if you want to deploy this application in other runtime, some other, so you can install runtimes. So that runtime will be added as a plugin. So go to the third option, Anypoint Studio Runtime Editions. These all are the previous versions, right? So you can select 4.3 already added as a plugin. If you want to add any other runtime as a plugin, you can add that. These plugins will be added to your studio, Anypoint Studio. Once you develop, everything is done, implementation is done, then you export your application as a jar file. That application will be deployed on a different strategy by using different strategies, whether it's on-premise or a hybrid on a cloud. Now this runtime, we can select any runtime. Okay, if you add 4.2.2, it will be added to your Anypoint Studio. It will be shown in the list. You can select this application to be deployed on which runtime. Okay, to test it. Okay. Next, once you click on finish, I don't want to discuss about all this API because at the API level I will discuss that. And this is the use default location. If you want another location, unhighlight it and you can select. You can browse it. I just clicked on finish. It is not responding. It will take some time. Now we have created this project, right? From where I got all this structure, this folder structure, I just created a 0 1 basics. But how I got this structure? By default, all projects in Mule 4 are Maven projects. Okay, no need to specifically install Maven. By default, it is an inbuilt in your studio. Whenever you create any project, by default, Mule 4 projects are Maven projects. Okay, this is the structure of a Maven, right? So I'm going to explain about each and every step here and what are the modules we are going to get. And okay, I will talk about this package explorer when then we have a canvas where we are going to drag and drop the connectors. So on the right side, we have same Mule palette. We have two columns. One is on left side and right side. What is there on the left side? Actually, this contains, it's kind of a menu bar. Like if any module is not present at Anypoint Studio level, which we are going to use, then you can go to the search in Exchange option. That means you need to have an Anypoint platform account. You can log into that and you can search for the particular module. Sometimes whatever you are, I mean, frequently used modules will be released with the studio. If you want to add that particular module to your project level, then you have to click on a add module. If you click on add modules, you can see these all are the modules present in a studio level, right? If you want to use any module, just drag and drop onto the left side. You can see the blue color there. It is telling that drag here to add to your object project, right? So if you drag and drop any of the module, automatically it will be added as a dependency to your project. Since it's a Maven project, pom.xml is the main file where will contain dependencies. Whenever you add any project, it will be automatically added as a dependency to your project. You don't need to do anything. That is why it is so easy to learn as or to develop. No need to write any dependencies in your pom.xml. Automatically it will be created behind the scenes. And by default you will be having a HTTP and socket modules will be added whenever you create a project, right? If you want to remove, simply right click on that particular module and remove the module. Automatically it will be deleted from your build path as well. If you add it to that back, if you add that back to the uh, project, it will be added in the build path. So let me add one more time, HTTP, and I'm drag and dropping on the left side. Once I drop here, you can see on the left side also the connector has been added, right? So simply drag and drop, everything is a drag and drop here. Now whenever you create any configuration XML, this is the configuration XML I'm talking about. In the palette we have seen, sorry, in the session I discussed about the architecture, right? Anypoint, what is a Mule? In this Mule, we have created a Mule application. And this Mule application, we can write n number of XMLs. We will write here. By default, it is created one basic XML. That means with the project name. That along with that, we can create n number of XMLs under this project. In that every project, we can write a number of flows in this XML.